That was a great chapter. We just finished chapter 15, where Anne Marie was stopped by three German soldiers. And now she had just ran to the harbor and delivered the basket and the packet to Uncle Henrik. This chapter is called Chapter 16. I will tell you just a little. Poor Blossom, Uncle Henrik said, laughing after dinner that evening. It was bad enough that your mother was going to milk her after all these years of city life, but Anne Marie, to do it for the very first time, I'm surprised that Blossom didn't kick you. Mamma laughed too. She sat in a comfortable chair that Uncle Henrik had moved from the living room and placed in the corner of the kitchen. Her leg, in a clean white cast to the knee, was on a footstool. Anne Marie didn't mind their laughing. It had been funny. When she had arrived back at the farmhouse, she had run along the road to avoid the soldiers who might still be in the woods. Now, caring nothing, she was in no danger. Mamma and Christy were gone, and there was a note, hastily written from Mamma, that the doctor was taking her in his car to the local hospital and that they would be back soon. You remember when Mama was coming back, she broke her ankle, right? But the noise from Blossom, forgotten, unmilked, uncomfortable in the barn, had sent Anne Marie wearily out with a milking bucket. She had done her best, trying to ignore Blossom's irritated snorts and tossing her head, remembering how Uncle Henrik's hands had worked with a firm, rhythmic pulling motion. And she had milked. I could have done it, Christy announced. You only have to pull, and it squirts out. I could do it easily. Anne Marie rolled her eyes. I'd like to see you try, she thought. Is Ellen coming back? Christy asked, forgetting the cow after a moment. She said she'd make a dress for my doll. Anne Marie and I will help you make that dress, Mama told her. Ellen had to go with her parents. Wasn't it a nice surprise that the Rosens came late last night? She should have waked me up to say goodbye, Chrissy grumbled, spooning some imaginary food into the painted mouth of her doll that she had propped up in the chair beside her. Anne Marie, Uncle Henrik said, getting up from the table and pushing back his chair. If you come with me now to the barn, I'll give you a milking lesson. But wash your hands first. Me too, said Christy. Not you two, Mama said. Not this time. I need your help here. Since I can't walk very well, you'll have to be my nurse. Christy hesitated, deciding whether to argue. And then she said, well, I'm going to be a nurse when I grow up, not a cow milker, so I have to stay here and take care of Mama. Followed as usual by the kitten, Anne Marie walked with Uncle Henrik to the barn through a fine, misty rain that had begun to fall. It seemed to her that Blossom shook her head happily when she saw Henrik and knew that she would be in good hands again. She sat on the stacked hay and watched as he milked. But her mind was not on the milking. Uncle Henrik, she asked, where are the Rosens and the others? I thought you were taking them to Sweden in your boat, but they weren't there. They were there, he told her, leaning forward against the cow's broadside. You shouldn't know this. You remember that I told you it was safer not to know. But, he went on, as his hands moved with sure and practiced motion, I will tell you just a little, because You were so very brave." "Brave? Ugh!" Anne Marie asked, surprised. "No, no, I wasn't brave. I was very frightened." "You risked your life." "I didn't even think about that. I was only thinking of—" He interrupted her with a smile. "That's all that brave means. Not thinking about the dangers, just thinking about what you must do. Of course you were frightened. I was too today. But you kept your mind on what you had to do, and so did I. Now let me tell you about the Rosens. Many of the fishermen have built-in hiding places in their boats. I have too, down underneath. I have only to lift the boards in the right place, and there's room to hide a few people. Peter and others in the resistance who work with them bring them to me and to the other fishermen as well. There are people who hide them and help them get along the way to Gilligy? Fourth grade. I think that is the name of the harbor in Sweden. So it's a Swedish word. Anne Marie was startled. Peter is in the resistance? Of course, I should have known. He brings Mama and Papa the secret newspaper, the Die Free Dansky, and he always seems to be on the move. I should have figured it out myself. He is a very, very brave young man, Uncle Henrik said. They all are. Anne Marie frowned, remembering the empty boat that morning. Were the Rosens and the others there, then, underneath, when I brought you the basket? Uncle Henrik nodded. I heard nothing, Anne Marie said. Well, of course not. They had to be absolutely quiet for many hours. And the baby was drugged so that it wouldn't cry and wake. Do you remember that little dropper that Peter had put on the baby's tongue? Could they hear me when I was talking to you? Yes, your friend Ellen told me later that they heard you. And they heard that they heard the soldiers who came to search the boat. Anne Marie's eyes widened. Soldiers came? She asked. I thought they went the other way after they stopped me. There are many soldiers in Gilgi and all along the coast. They're searching all the boats now. They know that the Jews are escaping, but they are not sure how, and they rarely find them. Their hiding places are carefully concealed, and often we pile dead fish on the deck as well. And they hate getting their shiny boots dirty. He turned with his head toward her and grinned. Anne Marie remembered the shiny boots confronting her on the dark path. Uncle Henrik, she said, I'm sure you are right that I shouldn't know everything, but please, would you tell me about the handkerchief? I knew it was important, the packet, and that's why I ran through the woods to take it to you, but I thought maybe it was like a map? How could a handkerchief be important? Tune in fourth grade. The author's revealing historical events to you right now through the story of Anne Marie. Some things we've learned. Jews are leaving Denmark. They're hiding, kind of like the Underground Railroad. They're escaping through boats. And you just learned that they were hiding in the deep parts of the boats, escaping to Sweden. Hopefully, you remember that Sweden was a free country where Jews would be safe. Now you're going to learn about the handkerchief. How could a handkerchief be important? He set the filled pail aside and began to wash the cow's udder with a damp cloth. Very few people know this, Anne Marie, he said with a serious look. But the soldiers are so angry about the escaping Jews and the fact that they can't find them that they've started using trained dogs. They had dogs, the ones that stopped me on the path. Uncle Henrik nodded. The dogs are trained to sniff about and find where the people are hidden. It happened just yesterday on the boats. Those damn dogs, they go right to the dead fish, right through the dead fish to the human scent. We were all very, very worried. We thought it meant the end of the escape to Sweden by boat. It was Peter who took the problem to the scientists and the doctors. Some very fine minds have worked day and night trying to find a solution, and they've created a special drug. I I don't know what it is, but it was in the handkerchief. It attracts the dogs, but when they sniff it, it ruins their sense of smell. Imagine that. Anne Marie remembered how the dogs had lunged at the handkerchief, smelled it, and then turned away. Now, thanks to Peter, we will each ha- now thanks to Peter, we will each have such a handkerchief, each boat captain. And when the soldiers board our boats, we simply have to pull the handkerchiefs out of our pockets. The Germans will probably think we have bad colds. The dogs will sniff and sniff about, sniff the handkerchiefs we're holding, and then roam the boat and find nothing. And they will smell nothing. Did they bring the dogs to your boat this morning? Yes, not 20 minutes after you had gone. I was about to pull away from the dock when the soldiers appeared and ordered me to halt. They came aboard, searched, found nothing. By then, of course, I had the handkerchief. And if I had not, well, his voice trailed off. He didn't need to finish the sentence. She knew. If she had not found the packet where Mr. Rosen had dropped it, if she had not run through the woods, if the soldiers had not taken the basket, if she had not reached the boat in time, all of the ifs whirled in Anne Marie's head. They are safe in Sweden now? She asked. You're sure? Uncle Henrik stood and patted the cow's head. I saw them ashore, and there were people waiting to take them to shelter. They are safe there. But what if the Nazis invade Sweden? Will the Rosens have to run again? That won't happen. For reasons of their own, the Nazis want Sweden to remain free. It is very complicated. Anne-Marie's thoughts turned to her friends hiding under the deck of the Ingenborg. It must have been awful for them, so many hours there, she muttered. Was it dark in the hiding place? Dark and cold and very cramped. And Mrs. Rosen was very seasick, even though we were not in the water very long. It's a short distance, as you know. But they are courageous people, and none of that mattered when they stepped ashore. The air was fresh and cool in Sweden. The wind was blowing, and the baby began to wake as I said goodbye to them. I wonder if I'll ever see Ellen again, Anne Marie said softly. You will, little one. You saved her life, after all. Some day you will find her again. Some day the war will end, Uncle Henrik said. All wars do. Now then, he added, stretching, that this was quite a milking lesson, was it not? Uncle Henrik, Anne Marie shrieked, and then she began to laugh. Look, she pointed. The god of thunder has fallen into the milk pail. Remember the kitten? And that's the end of the chapter. Fourth grade, the author just showed you that people work really hard to help those in need, kind of like now. And you learned that the Germans were working really hard against the Jews. And people cared enough to create that special formula that ruined the dog's nose. They can't smell. It ruined their sense of smell. And it saved lives. Those are true facts. And the author was showing you through history, through the lens of Anne Marie, true facts. Thanks for listening.